to the Freedom to Exit podcast. I'm your host, Lani Dickinson, and in the first few episodes of the podcast, we talked about all things related specifically to exit, but I'm passionate about two versions of exit. The exit now for time and location freedom while the business supports you and the life you built your business to have, and also the build to sell version of exit. So I am launching a Scale Smart series right now. This is episode 1 of the Scale Smart series because smart scale is the thing that's going to give you the time and location freedom because it's going to create the systems, the team, and the money for you to be able to go out and live the life you want and hold on to the business now, but also create that exit multiple later. So buckle up. Today's topic is one that trips up so many founders. I hear these two words used interchangeably all the time, and they are not the same and should not be used interchangeably. So what's the difference between growth and scale? And you might think you know the answer, but let me tell you, if you've been listening to the first 16 episodes of this podcast, then you know I'm constantly talking about optimization, systems, adding in AI, adding in automation, all of those things, because that's the stuff that will start to lead you to scale. It will help you grow, but there's a difference between the two. They are not interchangeable, and I want to reinforce that. So if you're chasing growth when you should be scaling, you're going to burn through cash, burning out your team, and really building a business you can't really sell and that you hate and don't want to be in anymore. So today, I want to help you fix that. But first, we're going to roll back into the past and give you one of the first sort of stories of scale that I think will kind of resonate with our audience. I want to talk about Henry Ford. He really focused on scale and made history, changed the world, frankly. So in 1908, it's been a minute, he released the Ford Model T. It was not the flashiest car. In fact, we should probably put a picture of it in here. It wasn't the fastest. It was reliable, affordable, and easy to produce. But the easy to produce came from Ford's focus on every little thing being optimized, which drives down cost and increases the ability to make massive amounts of things. So that's scale. In the first year, he produced 10,000 cars. This is 1908. So first year, 10,000 cars. We didn't even have roads. We didn't have gas stations, right? But I'll talk about that. By 1924, he had delivered 10 million Model Ts. Now that's scale. But here's the kicker. He didn't scale by doing more, which is what many of us are guilty of today. Lots more activity that burns everybody out. He didn't add 12 new models. He didn't chase luxury features. He focused on one product and built the system and solved every friction point along the way, optimizing everything to be able to build more faster with less cost and make it more accessible to more people in the market. He did that by creating an assembly line. That was new for the time. By standardizing parts. We take that for granted today, but this was really entrepreneurial and forward thinking for 1908. He really advocated for the highway system in building roads. He didn't build the roads himself, but he got very active in making sure that a national highway system would be built. He paid his workers enough to buy the product. Now, this is a problem that we see more in entrepreneurial space than we do in the small business space. But in the entrepreneurial space, you will often hear focusing on how low can they drive the wage down and where can they get access to those resources. Now, small business people in your local town probably are paying a little bit better wage, but he made sure that his own workers could afford to buy the product. And then he did support and help create the infrastructure around the support for people driving cars, like gas stations, to make owning a car possible. Those were all problems that needed to be solved to make his product really go from 10,000 to 10 million in the span of, I think it was 16 years. He didn't scale production. He scaled the entire system, solving one problem fully, optimizing it, and then moving on to the next. This is the thing that made that kind of true scale possible. That is scale, not just growth. So the difference between the two is really what matters if you're trying to make something that's going to create the cash flow that allows you to remove yourself from the business and go live the life you want, and create the exit multiple later. So growth means increasing revenue, increasing clients, or increasing output. Usually that is an increased effort, increased cost. That's adding team, right? So if I say I want to add 100 clients, what is the delivery I need to add for that, especially if I'm not doing anything with automation or AI? Scale means increasing output without a matching increase in effort or cost. So in today's world, that is absolutely going to mean using AI and automation, because how else can you increase on a scale level without adding a bunch of team or expense? So growth adds more weight, whereas scale builds more lift. Growth is what happens when you take on more clients, hire more staff, and you, the founder, work more hours. Scale is what happens when your systems take it on without you doing more. Perfect example, I launched a new webinar a few weeks ago, and while we were getting the Facebook ads working, the first couple, and I'm doing them live, so the first couple of webinars had 4 to 7 people on it. That's normal. And then out of the blue, I noticed I was getting ready, and I looked, and there were 41 people registered for the webinar. Because the registration, the onboarding sequence, sending the Zoom links, all those things happen in full automation. So I was like, hey, the ads are obviously starting to work. So that's just one example of, that's certainly not a scaled product, but it's this idea that we could go from 4 to 7 people to even 100 people without even noticing that had happened. You can grow yourself into frustration, fatigue, even death, but you cannot scale yourself to death, right? Because it's all happening without more effort from you or your team. So here's what scale might look like by a couple different business types. And then I'll talk about what scale is for everybody, but just by a couple different business types. So in the home services space, that'd be HVAC, landscaping, handyman, painting, those kinds of things. Before scaling, we would definitely want to see a full CRM, customer relationship management system, where all of your contacts are marshaled in one place, and an AI receptionist that handles every single lead is getting vacuumed up and moving through a process to get scheduled, and also can then be put into database reactivation to be sold something else later. Before scaling, you'd want consistent pricing, scheduling, and communication, and pricing is an issue. So many people underprice their services, and so they are potentially delivering service at a loss, and they don't know that. So we talk about that a little bit too. Once we get those foundations in, you can scale by hiring some field techs and having SOPs so that everybody's doing the same thing. Everybody has the same answers for the questions so that they're staying on brand. We've talked a lot about how brand builds the ability to have higher pricing, sell for more. Recognition means you're going to spend less on marketing, all of those things. You want to have automated quotes, dispatch, and follow-up sequences ready to go. If you're trying to do that manually, when you are trying to grow beyond growth and get to scalable, that is way too much manual process. And obviously, you already have to have recurring revenue built in and a way to automatically grow that. Buyers are going to want that monthly recurring revenue. They're going to want a whole host of reviews and responses to those reviews to be built up. You say, who has time? Guess who has time? An AI assistant has time to do those reviews. A buyer is going to want systems that don't require an owner in the truck running his business from the Dutch Brothers drive-through in between jobs. And we talk about a professional services. This is law, accounting, physicians, those kinds of things. Before scaling, you're going to want to have documented workflows and standardized onboarding and some kind of automation for intake and scheduling and payments and those kinds of things. Now, scale in the professional service will look a little bit more like growth. This idea of scale would be hiring junior staff and client success roles. So that's a lot more like growth because you're putting more people into the process, but delegating delivery frameworks and unbundling so you have a limited scope of what you're providing. Professional services are almost always very people heavy, so I use the word scale lightly, but I have clients who say, I want to scale my law firm, what can I do? In law, when you unbundle and you do a limited scope engagement, everybody in the building is fast at just those limited scope things that you're doing rather than having to know every kind of law and being a generalist for everything. That is something that can become somewhat scalable, especially if any of that can be done templatized in automation using AI, any of that. In healthcare, that would look like a bariatric surgeon would do the surgery, but the people would be delivering nutrition screening ahead of time, and the post-op care would be delivered not necessarily by the surgeon, right? So unbundling the elements that need to happen and then delegating them out to like junior staff to maximize the output of the professional. So in the professional services, remember, this is hard to really scale because we generally are adding humans for the expertise. As more and more AI takes over in places like law and accounting, they will be absolutely, truly scalable. In a hospital setting, I have a big background in hospitals, but I think this example is really good. In coronary artery bypass, the hospital gets paid about $40,000 per operation. The surgeon gets paid separately for that. But the way the hospital maximizes that payment is they step down by level of care needed to lesser trained staff as less expertise is needed. So they're unbundling the care and putting it in the most appropriate space all the way out into the home health setting. So you can see how you could do more of those when the surgeon doesn't have to provide everything from A to Z, right? So that would be a professional services scaling opportunity. The other thing in both those examples is you would be using care pathways, which would be, bulleted lists of this is what we do on this day. If the patient has this problem, this is what we do, right? So you can really get down to a bulleted care point pathway of what people are going to do. What do buyers want in these situations? Recurring retainers, well-developed referral network for higher level work, and clients that don't necessarily need the founder in the room for the whole process to take place, which means systems, as much automation and AI as you can incorporate, and obviously junior level staff who are well trained in the unbundled pieces so that they're getting expert level information and care at every level and every phase of what they need. An online coaching business. Before scaling, you need a defined offer, and it's proven people are buying it, and a fully built out lead generation and onboarding system. Then you would scale. And I love online businesses because they absolutely can have 40% profit margin. So this is exciting to me. This business can truly scale when they fully have all the problems that the person would have. This core offer for the first problem that people are Googling at 2:00 in the morning. And then when that's solved, people always have the next problem. And so then they've got a ready-made, sold in automation. Here's the next solution you're going to have. An example of that would be if somebody's looking for credit repair, the very next problem they probably are going to need solved is, I don't want to need to go back to credit repair. So I probably should learn how to manage a budget in a real world situation, right? Like maybe the credit repair need for credit repair came from the inability to budget. So let's fix your credit. Now let's teach you how to budget. Now, when somebody's budgeting and saving money, very often, maybe it's a car that they need, but very often, pretty soon, it's home ownership. So maybe the next problem that they have is, how do I buy my first home when I have a credit history that might say I'm risky? So this business that I just made up as we're talking here could go from credit repair to how to budget to how to get to buying your first home post needing credit repair, right? So that's like a fully built out offer ladder that solves the problem they're Googling for at 2:00 in the morning. And then after that's solved, there's something else they need. Solve that too. It's always less expensive to keep serving the same people rather than paying to get new people and convincing them to come get your service. Now, in every case there, most of what the content and the expertise can really be delivered either in automation or, at the worst case, in group programs. So there's not a ton of individualized work that needs to happen there. The scaling would also need to have fully built out AI and automation handling for all leads coming in, for nurture, for cross-sells, for upsells, all of those things. What do buyers want in this case? Consistent, repeatable systems and really sales systems. They want a clean back end with as much as possible being delivered in automation with onboarding funnels, a portal that has all of the information, and for whatever staff you need to deliver the content, if you need staff involved. And then if staff and clients are involved in beyond one step, then you want somebody involved in client success and making sure people are having a great experience so they go from one step to the next. Monthly recurring revenue, that's a no-brainer. They want that. And in an online business, definitely a whole content ecosystem out there that is creating visibility, building audience, and then converting traffic into customers. Now, in an e-commerce business, it's slightly different. Before scaling, you want fulfillment systems galore, support systems in place, all of the email systems that go along with e-commerce, onboarding product information, ongoing offers in a weekly email situation, abandoned cart sequences, because that does capture between 6 and 9% of lost sales just in sending a few emails, and then automated upsells and downsells and cross-sells in funnels. And then an e-commerce business, once all that's in place, would scale by having subscription models and having bundles, and then reaching out to influencers and setting up things for user-generated content, and then automating the outcome that comes from that. So buyers want, obviously, repeat customers, operations they don't have to rebuild, and optimized traffic sources that are absolutely converting, and then getting into all of that automation workflow. Now, mistakes that break scale early, scaling before stabilizing. So usually there's a period of growth. The metrics get all wonky. I talk a lot about metrics and monitoring and making decisions based on data. So the metrics get out of whack while we're doing massive growth or scale. So we've got to get those back into benchmark by optimizing the delivery system. And then we can take another step at growth. So if we don't stabilize at each step, we're just building more chaos. Another problem is adding more offers before you stabilize and optimize one. So you start with either your high ticket or your core offer. And when that is fully functioning with everything around it, then you would build the next thing, which would either be your high ticket or your core offer, whichever one you didn't build first. And then maybe it's your lower end, low ticket offer that creates audience visibility, builds know, like, and trust with other markets that weren't buying your product before. And then maybe your super high ticket or your exclusive or your VIP or something like that. If you don't optimize one at a time before you build the next thing, you're just scaling chaos, and really it all breaks. Automating too late or not at all. This is a huge problem in small business. They're, in my opinion, not seeing how important automation is. And that was already something we should have been doing. And now AI, I believe there's a statistic that says $80 million in labor will be eliminated by the end of 2026, all through the deployment of voice AI agents. But small business isn't really taking to automation and AI in a way that's meaningful. And so that they're going to be left behind their competitors who are early adopters of AI and automation. It is very difficult to scale if you are not maximizing automation and then building in AI as fast as you can. The biggest mistake I see is building everything around the founder or personalities within the business. So not creating things that need to happen because somebody doesn't like it or is in a bad mood or the founder doesn't want to do it that way or something like that. So building everything around the founder or a key personality in the business is a surefire way to never to be able to scale. So at the end of the day, you can't scale chaos. You're just going to multiply it. So systems, automation, data use, all of those things that I talked about on all of our episodes before this. So the right questions to ask yourself are, does this make my life better now? If the answer is yes, we can go on to number 2. Will it make my business more valuable later? If the answer is yes, then you say, can it be automated, delegated, deleted, or handled by AI? If the answer is yes, you want to go down the path of automating, delegating, deleting, fully getting rid of it, or creating the AI process to handle it. And then you will be ready to scale. Smart scale is how you make more, keep more, and get home, not just on time, but maybe even early while you're doing that, while also building something that someone else will want to buy later. So if you're not sure where to start, this is a great time to take the changes assessment. The link for that will be in the show notes. It'll show you exactly which parts of your business is ready for smart scale and what a buyer would see if they were going to come and try and buy your company now. I'd love for you also to subscribe to this Smart Scale series and share it with someone who needs to hear it, because this whole series is going to be how do you scale smart, get home early, make more money. So as always, thank you so much for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the Smart Scale series.